This was something which I was very determined to have in the exhibition, just to show the breadth of genres that were popular in British comics. And for many years, football strips were one of the biggest sellers. This is a page by Mike White from Roy and the Rovers. I don't really know exactly when it was done. We're guessing 90s, but it could be a decade earlier. Again, Mike White is a classic British comic artist. He's been working in boys' comics, girls' comics. He's done war strips. He was one of the regulars in Action, which is a very notorious British title. But it's really good, solid drawing and beautiful use of space here, I think.
And an unusual panel grid. It's not like a grid, it's more like a football stadium, how he puts the panels on top of each other, and sometimes
this one is just sort
the
of
shapes,
sitting on top of them. A lot of this comes from Frank Bellamy, which was the very first picture we saw in the exhibition. Bellamy sort of pioneered the use of different shaped panel borders, having them overlapping each other, and again, it's not unusual to have a British strip which you read across the page like that. By contrast, and you couldn't have more of a contrast, we have Jock underneath. This is from 2001, a cover of 2000 AD, where we have Mike White, who's a typical sort of representational mainstream comic artist. We have Jock, whose work is just completely out there with giant hands and knees coming out at you. This has definitely been one of the most popular pages in the exhibition. Jock is very, very popular now. Next to it is a page of Colin McNeil from the Judge Dredd magazine, a story called Insurrection. This is one of my favourites. I bought it off him a couple of years ago. I really like his use of toned artwork in this. It's beautifully subtle painting. We've gone back to 2000 AD again. This is the only page in the exhibition that isn't an original. This was from my friend Joe, who had a scan, very, very high resolution scan made of the original artwork. To be honest, a page like this really would be too expensive, I think, to send to the exhibition. So I'm happy that we just have this scan. Brian is my favourite 2000 AD artist and created the visual appearance of the characters that I've spent most of my career drawing, Judge Anderson and Judge Death. This is the finest strip 2000 AD's ever run, I think, the Dark Judge's story.
Yes.
Next to it we have Glenn Fabry, Slain from 1993. Glenn is probably the first artist from the next generation to come into 2000 AD. So in the late 70s you had Dave Gibbons, Brian Bolland, Kevin O'Neill, people like this coming in, really establishing the look of the comic. Then 6 or 7 years later you had people like Glenn and Simon Bisley coming in, who'd maybe been influenced by this first generation. I think Glenn is the best painter to work for 2000 AD. This is just beautifully drawn, fabulously painted. Underneath it we come right up to date with two contemporary pages. This is Chris Weston from 2017 from his Christmas story. Chris went completely mad with this, filling every panel with as many people as he possibly could do. Beautiful artwork. Next to it we have some chap called David Roach. I don't really know what to say about him. It's a moment of terrible ego on my part to insist on having one of my pages. In my defence, my colleague, Mr. Bartosz Nowicki insisted that I have it in, so blame him. But this has got my favourite techniques of having sponged textures in the sky and lots of sort of toothbrush splatted white paint everywhere.
It's a great page.
Thank you very much. These pages really should have been at the beginning, because in fact they're some of the oldest in the exhibition. These are examples of British newspaper strips. It's a genre that a lot of collectors around the world are probably not that familiar with. This strip in particular is not well known at all. It's called Carol Day by David Wright, who I think is one of the best British comic artists of all time, and a big favourite of Brian Bolland. This ran from the late 50s to the late 60s, and Wright died very young, tragically. At the bottom we have Jeff Hawke by Sid Jordan, very popular in Italy. There's still, I think there's a Sid Jordan fan club still operative in Italy. Classic science fiction strip. In this frame we have 3 pages of Modesty Blaze by Jim Holdaway. These are from the 60s. Jim Holdaway was the original artist on the strip, and I think the best.